All right, so a little bit of interruption there, and we're back sort of in what I would call a voyeuristic tendency. I'm actually sort of in the process of trying to get the computer and my audio interface to just kind of work a little bit better together and sort of reduce some latency. I have a few computers in my studio that I've had to do this to. Typically, when I do my live streams, I do it on a standalone device, and then I also have a laptop that I use for the commercial work. So now my main computer, which is the one that I use for most of my post-production work professionally, is now the one that I am actually trying to get OBS sort of working the way I want it to. I did do a live stream last night, which I thought was generally pretty effective, but I had a bit of audio latency, which was really annoying me, which I think I've pretty much figured out. But the other thing is I was also having some echoes, which is extremely, extremely irritating. And I've been trying to sort of deal with that and just trying to route stuff in OBS. For any of you that know how OBS is, sometimes it can take a little bit of tweaking because it's, you know, it's an open source piece of software, and it does have a tendency to sometimes have little greeblies and not work the way that one wants it to. But everything seems to be working okay now, which is a nice thing, and hopefully it'll stay that way. But I've actually had to do a number of different tests and just kind of figure out what was working where and why, and do the whys and wherefores and that sort of thing, which now I think I've pretty much managed to, for the most part, deal with. Now I have a nice little compressor going on here, so we have a little bit more of a radio sound. I will probably sort of tweak that a little bit. So for those of you that missed last night's kind of live stream of me just kind of talking about, you know, why it is for the next couple of days that I'm going to have this sort of strange looking setup where I've got this kind of shitty background back here, and more importantly, why you can't see my face and why I'm not either wearing a lav or a headset. It's because I am actually going to be doing a voiceover workshop with Chris Rager, who those of you that follow anime and any of the Funimation dubs would know that that is the studio responsible for the English versions of Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball, Inuyasha, and a number of other different series. So I will actually post I kind of told a little story about my background in animation and production, and how I sort of got involved on the other side of the microphone with voice acting, more on the side of voice directing with some animation, but primarily commercials. And I will actually post a link to that in the description below for those of you that might be interested to kind of hear a little bit about my story with that. But in the case of what's going on right now, it really is just a case of me sort of testing things, which is why I joke that it's sort of a voyeuristic thing. And, you know, one of the nice things about it is I can kind of be a little freer than I would if it were an over-the-air broadcast. But at the same time, I also kind of want to make sure everything is working properly, because the setup that you're looking at right now is actually the setup that I'm going to be using, at least temporarily, for the voiceover session that the voiceover sessions that I'm going to be doing with Chris for the workshop that where we're doing ADR and Japanese dubbing and voiceovers for video games and that sort of thing. So right now I've just kind of moved everything over from my existing setup into a corner where it's reasonably quiet and I can connect it to an interface, right? Because Chris and the others need to be able to hear me when I'm actually performing, so that they can give critique and they can give feedback and they can give suggestions and so on and so forth. So for the majority of the sessions, just because of COVID being the way it is, we are actually going to be doing it remote, which a lot of the Funimation dubs right now are in fact being done remotely. And we use a piece of software called Source Connect. So for those of you back in the day in the 90s that had done the odd remote session, back in the day we used to use something called ISDN, and it was a way to sort of connect the line so that if you were not in the exact studio that was going to be recording your audio, it was a way to have high quality broadcast audio that could then be used for whatever the project was, be it for television, be it for film, whatever. You could be on the other side of the world and you could use an ISDN connection, and then you could actually, you know, do your recording session. Now, of course, we use Source Connect, and Source Connect basically allows you to be as if you're in the same room and in the same studio. So long as you have an internet connection that's fast enough, what it does is it basically kind of does some jiggery pokery with the packets of the data for the audio, so that they have a reliable connection and they can basically direct you and you can hear them and they can hear you as if you were in the studio with them. But generally, we only use Source Connect for the actual dubbing, so there's only a couple of sessions that we're going to be doing. By and large, the workshop voice acting component is going to be done through Zoom, but Zoom is something that generally needs to be done on the computer. I don't have anything on my iPad that I can actually have the interface go through it, and I don't really feel like dropping another $1,200. So basically what I've done is I've sort of rigged a GoPro, which I have here, which is the same GoPro that I use for the normal live streaming. And then what I've done is I've taken my professional broadcast microphone, my voiceover microphone with my pop filter and my spider mount and everything on the stand, which you can see a little bit of that here. This is a bit of a close-up so you can actually see that, and then I have that connected to my Scarlett 2i4 interface, which is connected to the computer, which is connected to Zoom. So even for the straight back and forth voice acting, it can actually be heard in extremely high quality over Zoom, and it's actually seen as an audio device, so people can see me and they can hear me, which is really nice. But this is the first time that I've kind of run this on my Windows 10 desktop, and I was basically just trying to make sure that I had everything working, because the workshop itself starts on the 22nd. So the 22nd and the 24th we're doing this, and Murphy's Law being what it is, you know, I didn't really want to do it the day of and try to move stuff around and then have something not work, and then the drivers don't work, and then people are going, where are you? And then that's the kind of stuff that I hate. I mean, I personally can't imagine that there would be anybody that would like it. But it's, yeah, so basically I'm just sort of fighting against the clock a little bit. I want to make sure that everything is nice and smooth, so that when I connect with Zoom, that everything works exactly the way I want it. Now, eventually what I want to do is I kind of want to have all of the computers sort of configured for OBS through the audio interface in one way or another, because I don't always want to be sort of tethered to the keyboard all the time, because the way that I have the live stream set up at the moment is that I have my Prophet 5 and I have my Korg workstation and I have my, you know, my headset microphone, and my lavalier microphone is actually connected directly into the mixer, which is connected into the recorder, which is doing a direct feed into my live broadcasting device, which is a standalone device, and then I usually will plug it in, and that's sort of how I roll with that. And then I have all the audio sources kind of going into it, but I don't actually have the computer going into it. So if I want to show you something in my DAW, like for example, I'm going to be doing some sort of behind the scenes of Go Nitro, because I write all the music for it as well. And I've had people ask me how you get that sound and how do you do it and whatever. So I am actually planning on doing some, if not tutorial videos, just some sort of inspirational, if you want to call it that, just sort of the process that I use to make music for television and that sort of thing. So right now, with the sort of live streams that I do right now, where I have the Prophet 5 kind of running through a standalone reverb and the keyboards, that's pretty straightforward. But what you can't hear is if I'm running an instance of Omnisphere, or if I'm running an instance of Dune 3, or if I'm running an instance of Spitfire Albion, or something to that effect. So all of these really nice VSTs that I use as part of the sound, right, that I layer the sound that kind of makes up Go Nitro, and the music that I do, you can't hear, because I would have to run it through the mixer, which is fine. I mean, I have plenty of ports. But we also have a perfect crystal clear digital signal, and it seems a little silly to take a perfect signal and then route it to analog and then send it back in digital. It doesn't make sense to me. Being able to kind of virtually patch that audio so that you can hear it in, you know, full crystal clear seems to me to make more sense. And up until now, I didn't really have the time to sort of be able to do that. But since I'm doing this stuff for Chris's class anyway, and because I'm doing the voiceover stuff anyway, and because I have to set up the, excuse me, I have the hiccups, because I have to set up the audio interface anyway, it makes sense that everything is kind of done now. So that way I don't sort of have to rip everything apart and sort of get everything going. But as a part of that, trying to deal with audio interfaces, and it's funny, I've been doing this for probably 15-20 years now, at least 15-20 professionally, and it doesn't seem to matter how long that you've been doing this stuff. There always seems to be a problem with audio interfaces. There is either an issue with latency, or there is an issue with just a driver, or there's always something that doesn't work, and then you're kind of tearing your hair out for hours and hours and hours and hours, and you burn up an entire day trying to get the bloody thing to work, and then it doesn't work the way you want, or you get like 99.99999% of the way, and then there's one little thing that's irritating you, and then you're trying to kind of troubleshoot that. I guess you could kind of file that under computers. Windows 10, I'll give Windows 10 this much. It works a lot better, at least for me anyway, than Windows 7, right? Because I had these nice little nuggets that I could sort of HDMI to USB, and they work really well, but they don't work that well on Windows 7, at least not on my machine. But now that I have a nice new Windows 10 desktop, it just sees it and I'm able to do it. And I was expecting a lot more hair tearing than I ended up getting, which is, I suppose you could file that under first world problems, and it is. But for the only issue that I had last night when I did my little test broadcast is I had a little bit of latency that I hadn't quite been able to sort of get out yet, which was really annoying. So because I was telling a somewhat interesting story, at least I think anyway. I mean, I guess anybody that's talking thinks that really interesting, but it was annoying because I had a slight delay. So I'm trying to kind of keep on top of the audio, and then I listen to it and I sound like I'm drunk, right? Because I'm sort of listening to it, and it's extremely aggravating, right? Because you're trying to kind of deal with this slight audio trail, and I was just sort of troubleshooting it. But at least now that I have sort of dealt with, now I have some compression on this signal for OBS, so I have a little bit more of sort of a radio pop, but I needed to make sure that everything kind of worked the way I wanted to as well. The other thing that I'm going to do as time goes on is I'm also going to spend some time, so maybe I'll move the camera so that you can see the side of my mouth so that you can actually see my face, because right now it looks like I'm eating this like some kind of Chinese import German design sex toy, which I'm sure is great for some people, but probably not really what we're going for this. But for the time being, this is really just an audio test. This is also why I don't have the nice overlays that I typically have, because this is kind of a temporary setup. I'm just trying to make sure that everything kind of works, and and make sure that the audio is routing properly, make sure that the audio is decent. Hopefully there isn't an echo, those sorts of things, right, that you kind of troubleshoot. So as far as I'm concerned, I have another 72 hours or 48 hours or whatever it is until Tuesday comes, so I should be good. The only thing that sucks is I can't go to jiu-jitsu, but I kind of cranked my shoulder anyway, so it hurts like a son of a bitch. But you know what? That's martial arts for you. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. So any of you that happen to be watching me right now, this really is just a test. Hence, as I say, the sort of voyeuristic tendency. But I will most likely be on later on tonight after I get a little bit of work done. I find that I tend to get a good amount of work done on the weekend. But, I'll have a more coherent, if you want to talk about it, rant later on tonight. But right now, as I say, it's just sort of a test. And as soon as I kind of sign off, which I'm going to do in just one moment here, I'm going to actually be listening to it myself and seeing how the audio is, and then I'll just be making some tweaks as the case may be. So I think that pretty much does it for the time being. So far, with any luck, there's no audio problems or anything like that. I personally will know in a few minutes, right? Because right now I have a direct feed in my headphones. So for those of you that, have not already subscribed, as you've probably imagined, I'm going to ask you to. So please do, if you have not subscribed already, hit that subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner, the big red one, or you can click on the Skycron logo, which is right here in this handy-dandy video screen in YouTube, and you too can get automatic updates on all the cool stuff that I and the company are doing. And there are some very cool things that are coming up, so you absolutely will not want to miss them. The other shameless plug that I am going to make is please do visit our website, which is gonitro.tv, and make sure that you watch Go Nitro in syndication across the United States on Fox, ABC, CBS, CW, and NBC affiliates. In fact, the probably closest airing that is in relation to this broadcast is our friends at Fox Rochester are going to actually be running the Dragon Boat episode tonight at 6:30 Eastern Time on Fox Rochester in, our wonderful, friendly town of Rochester, New York. And please do check gonitro.tv and your local listings for whichever episodes are going to be airing in your neck of the woods. And the other thing, too, is, if you have any comments or questions or anything you'd like to see, I always enjoy kind of seeing stuff in the chat, and I try to respond as much as possible. Obviously, in this interim, I don't really have anything set up at the moment, but I probably will have something set up tonight. And then obviously next week, we'll be back to the normal kind of sit down with the overlay and the nice lights and the graphics that you have now probably come to expect. And it's very easy with that standalone device for me to put comments on. But in the meantime, I'll kind of put something temporary so that you can see your comments and I can see them while we're talking with this new sort of setup, at least for a week. But, I didn't want to kind of go away for a week and have people wonder, hey, where the hell did he go? I'm still here. It's better to have a little bit of a ghetto setup, albeit with better audio than nothing. So that'll pretty much do it for now, I think. And have a great one. And I will see you most likely later on tonight. But if not, it won't be too long after that. Have a good one. Bye-bye.